I know you've seen 1,000 videos with titles like this before, and you're probably thinking, just more clickbait rubbish. But for once, I actually think I have bought the cheapest electric van, certainly in the UK, but probably in the world. Let's take a look at it, shall we? This is my 2021 Maxus eDeliver 3, and it cost me £1,200 plus VAT and fees. And looking at it, well, you can kind of see why. It's certainly not in the first flush of youth, but it's a running, driving, not MOT'd, electric van for £1,200. The bonnet doesn't quite shut at the moment. It's not actually related to the damage you can see here. The bonnet catch is actually just seized. The bonnets on these are weird. It lifts. It doesn't have hinges. It just lifts straight off. So you undo the catch and it lifts straight off. Really weird. But I'm hopeful that sorting that out won't be too difficult. It was closed when it arrived, and I opened it to have a look under the bonnet, and now it won't close. But I think we'll be able to sort that out pretty easily. But as you can see, yeah, it could do with a new front bumper. It's had a little bit of a incident there. We've got some trim missing from this wheel arch here. Now, they're actually really cheap, to be fair. It's only about 14 quid to replace that from Maxus. So we'll be sorting that out. And, you know, pretty much all over, yeah, it's a bit scruffy. And I think buying literally the cheapest electric van in the world, you're going to expect that. The back doors have been smashed in pretty well. I'm hopeful we can maybe straighten those out a bit. I'm not going to be replacing doors or anything like that. And this side isn't actually too bad. You see the front wing and stuff's a bit dodgy, but all in all, I've seen worse. Let's take a look inside, shall we? So, as you can see, it's pretty filthy in here. And it is full of paperwork and stuff for the previous owner. Now, this was sold at auction by the finance company that it was on sort of asset finance with. So I don't know if it was a repossession or if it just came to the end of its term, but to me, being full of stuff still here kind of suggests that it left in a little bit of a hurry. And we've got some controls here because this van actually has a conversion in it. If we open up the rather knackered doors, you can see it has like an oven in the back. The company that had it before did Meals on Wheels, and so this would be used to keep food warm. Now, it's a bit odd, and not a lot of use to me, but I'm told that to kit this out like this, when it was done, cost over £13,000. So my initial thoughts when I bought this was to rip all this out, but we might need to explore whether it's actually of use to someone that wants to do this kind of thing before I go to the hassle of ripping all that out. So you can see we still have a little load area in here, and then obviously the bulk of the space is used by the system for the ovens. We've got a bunch of batteries here, so I'm guessing they are charged up using an inverter, probably off the 12-volt system rather than being plumbed into the high voltage, which is kind of what you'd expect, really. It's probably similar to how they'd work in a diesel. And there's a charging socket round the other side for keeping this running when you're parked up, so you can plug it into like a 16 amp commando socket to presumably charge all this up and keep the ovens running. Interesting stuff. It'll be interesting to get some more information about how it all works. And this bit is actually, compared with the rest of the van, relatively clean and tidy, and I'm assuming this panel can go on there to cover all that up. So this van was sold to me as a 35 kilowatt hour eDeliver 3, and that's what it said on the listing. And actually, if you put the registration into some websites and stuff, it comes up saying it is a 35 kilowatt hour van. However, if we start it up, then we see it has 134,937 miles on the clock. Maintenance expired. Maintain immediately. Yeah, I think it needs a little bit more than some maintenance. E-call system fault, and that's going to be fun. If we can see, it has 143 miles range, and it's charged to 100%. So that is not a 35 kilowatt hour battery. This must have the 52.5 kilowatt hour battery, with the bigger battery version of these, which I think, to be honest, is what most people bought. The rest of the interior, well, it's actually, the interior is in much better condition than the exterior. It all needs a good clean, but it's actually mostly here. And apart from being grubby, it's not too bad. So it doesn't have an MOT, but we'll take it for just a quick run just around the estate here, and we'll see what it's like, shall we? So apart from the e-call system fault on the dash, there isn't any other warning lights on or fault codes or anything like that. So hopefully, drivetrain wise, it's not too bad. Now, I know that this was actually put in for an MOT and it failed, so we'll talk about what it failed on in a sec, and some of the issues with it might become quite apparent as we go for a quick drive. This camera mount's a bit rubbish, but we're not going very far, so. Ooh, doesn't really feel like we've got much suspension at the rear. Just going over a speed bump, yeah, there isn't really much suspension to speak of. So I think some of those MOT failure items will be quite justified. But I mean, certainly the motor's okay, the battery must be okay. It actually drives, but yeah, something not quite right in the rear suspension for sure. It doesn't seem to really have much damping effect at all. Ooh, and we've got a bit of a clunk on the front end as well. But it runs and drives, and apart from the suspension clunking, we're not got anything going on that I wouldn't expect. Ooh, some really big clunks from the front end though. And that's certainly about as much driving as we're going to be doing until I can get this on the lift and have a look underneath it and see what's going on, because it doesn't seem particularly happy. But I would say the electric bits of it are absolutely fine. And it is certainly the suspension and the sort of normal van stuff, which probably from a life of, being abused, it certainly doesn't look like it's been well cared for, so it's not really a surprise that some of the mechanicals might not be quite there. I noticed as well when I select reverse, and I will take you back down and show you in a sec. So we're certainly not without our faults. We've got the e-call system failure, which is the sort of emergency call thing, so we've got the SOS button up here, and that obviously won't work at the moment. Now, I've heard that apparently what happens is it has an internal battery in it that fails, so maybe we'll be able to sort that out, maybe we won't. It's not really the end of the world, I suppose, but it would be nice to have that working. The reverse camera doesn't work at all, so if I select reverse, the sensors work fine, but it says that the rear cameras are faulty now. That's probably got something to do with the accident damage to the back. We're obviously massively overdue a service, but apart from that, there's no other warning lights or anything like that. Everything sort of functions as you'd expect, which for nearly 135,000 miles isn't too bad. Other stuff does seem to work. The heater works. The air conditioning I'm not so sure about. I'm wondering if maybe the condenser's had a bit of a smack when the front end's been done, so we might need a new aircon condenser, but I don't know, it seems like a reasonable base to start with. I think just with a little bit of care, we'll have a decent running, driving van that, you know, is usable. It's just going to need a little bit of maintenance to actually get it going. So let's talk a little bit about that MOT failure then, shall we? If I pull up the MOT history. So it was presented for an MOT on the 15th of May with 134,928 miles on the clock, and it failed. Well, quite a list of stuff. Quite a bit for like headlights not working, offside headlight not working, daytime running lights not working. That is clearly fine now. So the front lights are all working absolutely fine. And I noticed there was, I think I found a bulb in here somewhere. Yeah, found a bulb here. So I'm guessing somebody changed some bulbs and got all that working again. Bonnet cannot be secured in the closed position, so we know about that. I'm hoping that cleaning up that bonnet catch is going to sort that out. Near side rear leaf spring seriously weakened. Offside rear leaf spring seriously weakened. Near side rear leaf spring fractured. That will explain why we don't really seem to have much rear suspension at all. It's very, very rough over bumps, and I'm guessing that will explain that. Near side front suspension arm pinner bush excessively worn. Inner front bush on the near side front suspension arm. That probably explains why we've got quite so much clunking from the front end as well when we go over bumps, because the front suspension is kind of hanging on by a thread. Near side repeater lens defective, so the mirror's all smashed up, so that's probably why. And then advisories for damage to front and rear of vehicle, no shit Sherlock. And brake pipe covered in grease or other material, both front to rear. So I'm guessing it's quite common to stick some, you know, wax oil on brake pipes if they're starting to get a little bit crusty. So I'm not worried about that. But it looks like to get it roadworthy, basically, and before we even think about any of the cosmetics, it is change both rear leaf springs and change one of the front suspension arms. Realistically, probably both of the front suspension arms, because if one side is worn out, the other side won't be far behind. Interestingly, it failed an MOT at 90,000 miles for a fractured leaf spring as well. So I'm guessing these are quite hard on the rear suspension. Maybe having all this stuff in the back isn't helping that. But all in all, given it seems to work, we haven't checked the battery health yet, but I think given it's showing 144 miles of range fully charged, it must be reasonably healthy. It'd be interesting to see what the state of health is, and we'll certainly do that when we start delving into it further. But it's not that far away from being a roadworthy, running, driving electric van. So I guess maybe £300 for the leaf springs and a little bit on top for a suspension arm. It's not huge money. I think probably, you know, £400, £500. I mean, I'm not going to send this to a garage to get worked on. I will do this myself. We'll stick it on the lift in the workshop and we'll change the suspension parts, and maybe I'll bring you a video of me doing that. It's not going to be worth paying someone else to do it, certainly not. But I think, you know, £500 worth of suspension bits and get it sort of road legal, get it MOT'd, and then we'll work out what we're going to do about the cosmetics and probably what we're going to do about the sort of catering stuff, whether we need it or not. I spoke to the company that did the conversion. They're going to send me some information about how this all works, because we've got various controls here and temperature displays and stuff like that, and it'd be nice to understand how it all works so I can explain to someone else if they were going to buy this as a sort of going concern for their business that that stuff, it actually all works properly, because at the moment I've got no real idea about it, and we'll go from there. But this video really is just a quick one to show you that actually, believe it or not, you can buy a running, driving electric van for £1,200. Maybe not the best purchase I've ever made, but I'm hopeful that with a few £100 worth of bits, we can at least get it road legal, and then we can work out what we're going to do with it. And let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think I've made a massive mistake buying this? Or would you jump at the chance to buy something like this for as low as I've paid for it? I mean, I think it's a bit of a bargain. It's not that far away from being roadworthy and sort of useful. Time will tell. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Just a little bonus update for those that actually stay till the end. The bonnet catch now works as expected. It was as I thought. It was just seized up, so give it a clean, give it a grease up, and it's all good. Happy days.